What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here. Wow, have so many of you sent me this. Yes, I'm aware that Minsc and Boo's Journal of Villainy does exist. I was just trying to get some time to actually get a chance to review it, and now I have, so we're going to go ahead and talk about it. So if you're unaware, this is one of those weird things that Wizards of the Coast does, where they stealth drop something that's official kind of Wizards content with no fanfare, no marketing of any kind, really, and then all of a sudden it's just out there, and it's actually a super good resource on the DM's Guild. Before I dive into this, though, hey, the number, you can see it right here, it's at 81.3. Subscriber count has been going up consistently, and you guys have been absolutely knocking it out of the park. I'd love to hit 100,000 by the time PAX Unplugged rolls around in December. I don't know if that's lofty or not. Only you have the ability to make that happen by doing that one simple click that it takes for you to help me out immensely. So if you like what I do here and like this up-to-date news coverage and all this kind of stuff, consider doing that. But here it is. We're on the DM's Guild. You can see it right here, Minsc and Boo's Journal of Villainy 5e. This is published from Wizards of the Coast. You can see it down here. It's Wizards of the Coast. This is an Extra Life thing as well, as we've talked about in the past. This also might be the first ever Wizards of the Coast official product that has print on demand. I don't believe any of the previous stuff they've done has. I know you could get a printed version of Elemental Evil Player's Companion back in the day. I don't know if that ever finally, it was a limited run. But you can see you can get it in softcover, hardcover, or a combination of both. And basically, you're going to get a ton of stuff here. So it says, a century has passed since the Ball spawned fought over the legacy of their father, Ball, the Lord of Murder. So basically, what is this going to do? This is a journal of 4 cities, including Athkatla and Baldur's Gate, 10 group patrons, led by some of their old friends, a dozen new monsters, 6 archvillains, and 11 dastardly henchmen. This is a 158-page resource. It is 100% rushed to put this out for some reason, and I'll show you at least 2 instances of why I think that's the case. Also, we just made this huge push, a whole article about it, and I made a whole video on it, about the change of NPC stat blocks to condense down the spellcasting stat, make things easy. Then they release this thing, and it doesn't follow suit. So, I don't know who's got their wires crossed, but they do. Anyway. So we can go ahead and take a look. If we scroll down into the table of contents, we do have a disclaimer to read here. The editor of this journal takes no responsibility for the veracity of the author's claims, or veracity, I think it says. The editor will point out that the author believes his hamster can talk, I've only heard it squeak, comes from space, and has a hamster sister the size of a horse. And here you can see the contents, right? So we have heroic stories, hometowns, the 4 there. We have Athkatla, Baldur's Gate, Soldanesalar, and Usnatha. We have several group patrons, several campaign-style villains, henchmen, and then monsters. I really like to see some of the monsters that are there have returned, and I guess what'll be the closest thing to an official 5e release for them, but let's keep looking. So, talks about heroic stories, so a little bit about that. It says, hero begins their journey in a hometown usually threatened by evil. They encounter a mentor figure who helps relieve them, reveal what must be done to save their hometown and often the rest of the world, and in the end comes face to face with that villain that they must overcome. It says, don't believe me? Harry Potter fights to protect Hogwarts, is mentored by Dumbledore, must defeat Voldemort. Frodo begins his journey in the Shire, is recruited by Gandalf, must go to the heart of Sauron's land. Luke Skywalker leaves Tatooine to learn about the Force from Obi-Wan, and so on. So it's basically talking about the hero's journey, right? You can look this up, it's a whole thing. And that's Star Wars is a very good example that follows it to the letter, but other examples as listed here do that as well. So this is hometowns are where player characters begin their campaign. They're often the base of operations. They talk about what kind of stuff you should put in there. So they talk about bazaars, fences, and shops. They talk about the different concepts of group patrons and how they can send you on missions and what kind of things you can have there. And then they give you some options here for some rolling tables, a random hometown. They give you the 4 that we mentioned, and randomized group patrons and campaign villains. So you could just do it completely at random and then use this. Again, obviously, these are skewed towards the Forgotten Realms, but you could obviously swap these out, keep the same, all of the other stuff that's there, swap out the name for a town that you have. So, while I could read Ask Katla, I feel like we'll do Baldur's Gate because it's the one that most people can they know about. They've at least heard of, whether it be from the games or sent it to Avernus or whatnot. But if we take a look, you can see it's got the population, the government, the defense. This is also stuff personally that I strive to have in my homebrew campaign for all of my towns. Obviously, I don't have that, and sometimes I have to make stuff up on the fly. But this is like a degree of depth that I strive for. A little bit about the culture, right? Here's what kind of minerals and things they have. A history of the town. Here's a map. There's 30 notable locations. The laws. Here we talk about the cowled wizards and the shadow thieves. Different encounters that can happen within the city. We have bazaars, fences, and shops. Here's Joaquin's Promenade. What kind of magical stuff they'll have, and the pricing. Pricing, folks. We have actual magic item pricing in this document. You can see a +1 battle axe will run you about 400 gold in Athkatla, whereas a +2 shield will run you 3,000. Or all the way up to 36,000 for a great sword of sharpness. Then we have, again, Shops of the Bazaar, which gives you a roll on the random, basically rolling randomly. Again, very easy to just drag and drop these into your own campaign. Then we move into Baldur's Gate proper. So we can see the population, 125,000. Plutocracy is the government, held by a council of 4 and a parliament of peers. Flaming Fist mercenaries and the Watch are the defense. The commerce is dyes, fish, imports from Chult, mercenaries and nautical supplies, and the organizations are the guild, neighborhood crews, and trade guilds. And thus prominent religions are Gomd, Timora, Umberlee, and any other law-abiding faith cults. And then there's obviously the Cults of the Dead 3. Right? That's a big part of the whole Baldur's Gate games. And then here's, again, just a high-level history and information about Baldur's Gate, often referred to as the Gate. You talk about the Dukes, which is the kind of the Council of 4 we were mentioning. Here's a handful of notable locations. Now, I actually happen to have a D30 on hand. We've got a 30 table, so let's go ahead and roll it. 25. The Guild Hall, the location of the Baldur's Gate Thieves Guild. Let's roll one more. Problem is D30 is kind of like a ball, though, so it keeps rolling. 22. Sea Tower of Balduran, the Flaming Fist Fortress and Prison. You can see this nice big map showcasing all of that. We've got a D6 encounters covering a variety of different things. Some pretty powerful stuff, too. We've got the Wolfware and the Gibberling. Here's the Bazaars, Fences, and Shops. We can see Rilsa Rails Wares, I guess. I don't know how you pronounce that, but you can buy Elven Chain for 11,000 gold here, or an Ironstone of Reserve for 13,000. There's the magic items at Sorceress Sundries. That's a very common name I've seen used in most campaigns. But you can see they sort of sell like consumables, with the exception of this Wand of the War Mage. And then the High House of Wonders. This is Gond, who basically is the Wonder Maker, the sort of god of crafts and creation, a Hephaestus-style type. Has a bunch of stuff as options here as well. And you can see them. He considers those to be pious in nature, reflected in a religion role. We have the other 2 towns as well. We'll scroll through these just to get you an idea. Show off some cool art. Then we get into group patrons. No, sorry, I skipped ahead. Campaign. No, wait, is this group patrons? No, sorry. Themes and goals, missions, enemies. Okay. You can see that I don't know if these bookmarks are actually taking us to places. Oh, I see. We're going to skip hometowns, so close that. Group patrons. Here we go. So, we have a handful of them here, you can see. Why don't we start with the Adventurers Guild? That's a pretty solid one to start with. So, they have different operatives. Cartographer. Every adventuring band needs someone to make who makes maps, dungeons, ruins, and tombs. There's no point finding the treasure if you can't get your way back. Zoologist. Unless an adventuring band wants to get slaughtered, someone has to keep up to date on the strengths and weaknesses of the monsters. Historian can help an adventuring band avoid repeating the mistakes of their predecessors. And the Face Man, this is the role that the youths across Faerun dream of becoming, the leader of the band, the iconic hero. They are the poster child for the guild, the ones who will have beautiful men and women waiting for them in every town, eager to spend even one night with a living legend. And then you can see they've got a D6 different quests tied to those 6, actually I guess tied to 5 of those. We have Monster Hunter, Archaeologist, Treasure Hunter, Mercenary, Surveyor, and Zoology. And then we have the different perks, right? This is something we learned about in the group patron concept. Originally piloted in Eberron, updated in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. But here you go. What do you get for joining the Adventurers Guild? Well, okay, it's a 10 gold paid annually to be part of the guild. And you get the Adventurers Guild Hall. Almost every town and city has an Adventurer's Guild Hall. The rooms match up to those in a modest inn, but at a lower price of only a silver piece a day. It says fence. It's much easier for you to sell magic items. Any magic item that you want to sell can be sold for its full price. Common and uncommon magic items take a day to sell. Rare and very rare take a D10 days. Legendaries take a D4 weeks. Magic items. Guild halls provide you with a huge network of fellow adventurers. This makes it easier to find specific magic items for purchase. And then lastly, henchmen. You can hire henchmen at any adventurer's guild. The henchmen are willing to accompany you on dangerous adventures if you are willing to pay their daily rate. However, if you ever ask them to perform a risky task, such as engage in battle, you must succeed on an intimidation or persuasion check. Other risky tasks include scouting out dangerous areas and reporting back or checking a hallway for traps. You can only have one henchman at a time. And then we can see we have some henchmen and their rates and their various DCs, which are all listed right here. And then here is Cornelius Watson. He is an academic. He's a character we can kind of use here as a contact. We have his full stat block, but look at this. His spellcasting. We just went through this whole big effort to talk about how we were updating our spellcasting. Look at this. He's got the full-blown stat block here with all of the spells and all of the spell slots. Something they just told us they were trying to go away from, and then they release a WotC-provided document that doesn't go in that route. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, right? It seems like it was... One of these was an afterthought, or like they forgot to give them the update for the new spells stat blocks. I don't know. Anyway, so Cornelius can be one of your contacts here. Here is the stat block. Here's it as a contact, right? He becomes available as a contact for an Adventurer's Guild at 9th level. He has maps to some of the most dangerous monster lairs in Faerun, and it lists off all the different maps and the cost to purchase the map, but you also get to know what you'll be able to get from it. For example, a Kraken will give you 2 rolls on a treasure hoard. And then we have Flimp Shagglecran. He is a gnome, looks like maybe an artificer. Yeah, battlesmith. He is also can become a contact. At low levels, he can use his planar ship, the Kraken's Folly, to take adventurers to many exotic locations. You could see those. They could be all around the Forgotten Realms, or they could be to other continents or other planes of existence, like the city of Greyhawk or the Githyanki city. Then we move on to additional ones. So we have Candlekeep. We'll go through what we have as these other ones here. So we have the Adventurers Guild. We have Candlekeep. I wish they had made these sub things here. We have the Church of Sune, or Soon, sort of. She's the goddess of the goddess of beauty and love. We have the Emerald Enclave. This would be very good if you were a big fan of the factions that were originally introduced. So we have the Emerald Enclave here. We have the Flaming Fist to sort of guard folks here of Baldur's Gate. We have, moving on from the Flaming Fist, we have the Harpers, sort of good network of spies throughout the realms. We have the Knights of Bahamut, kind of guardians and protectors of good and follower of the Platinum Dragon. Minsc and Boo also fall into that, into the Knights of Bahamut section here. And you can see here Sildul, she's riding a dragon, which is awesome. We have the Order of Icarus, which is one I had never heard of before. We have the Raven Circle, a group of people devoted to the Raven Queen. I'm sure that'll get a lot of love. The Shadow Thieves. I think that's the end of it. I don't know if I missed any in there, but for the most part, there you go. Then we move into the campaign villains. Here are 6 campaign villains in this chapter. If you aren't using one of them as a campaign villain, you might want to use them as a potential ally for your player characters, albeit one that isn't to be trusted. So these are supposed to be giant, powerful creatures that could basically be the villain for an entire campaign. And you can see we do have a handful of them here. We have, what is this? Belzebub is an archdevil and the lord of one of the 9 layers of hells. I don't think we're going to go over him, but we do see a couple of other creatures. Ball Slayer, Ball Ravager. Cryonax is another. He's kind of, I think he's the plane of ice. Mephistopheles. I think we'll go with Pazuzu. Pazuzu is, I think Jordan's going to actually be doing a whole lore video on Pazuzu. I believe Pazuzu is also the name of the demon from The Exorcist that was possessing, Linda Blair's character. Powerful demon lord, one of the eldest and most reprehensible of his ilk. He's also called the Dark Angel of the Four Winds and the Prince of the Lower Aerial Kingdoms. So we can see he does have air action or lair actions or regional effects, but his stat block here is his challenge rating 25, as most of these are significantly higher. And then you can see he has a ton of different fiend and demonic. They also don't have the typically. I didn't know most that. They don't have the typically chaotic evil. Now I know they had said they were gonna remove. They were only gonna put concrete alignments for things where it was a named NPC like Pazuzu. But if we go into the monsters later on, they don't have the typically for the alignments. And as we can see again, we have innate spellcasting. This is more in line with what we should see, but we saw that there is still spellcasting features on a variety of different monsters and NPCs within this book. But yeah, looking through Pazuzu's abilities with breath weapon and all these different resistances and whatnot, definitely not a demon that you want to mess with. And then you can see we have a handful more. Then we move into the Henchmen, right? Henchmen for your campaign villain, even if they aren't intended as such, they can also be used as unusual allies for your player characters. Again, if you think about any good, like, kind of long-running TV show or movie or something, series like that, you have the big bad, but the big bad always has, like, the villain or the henchman. And this is the one that the party encounters consistently, maybe multiple times before they're eventually defeated or converted to the side of good. But they're basically a thorn in the player's side and the sort of face representative of the big bad, who's usually squirreled away doing whatever it is they're doing. Do we have a whole bunch of different options here? They have a ton of backstory and lore about it, which I really like. As you can see here, he does have the full like spellcasting stat block. Trying to see if there's anybody that I really liked. I wanted to show off. This guy kind of reminds me of like a weird, I know he's not supposed to, but I immediately get Ronald McDonald vibes from this dude. The Chaos Clone. I also read that as Chaos Clown in my head, which I think is funnier. Challenge rating 11. He doesn't have his soul. Resurrection magic isn't able to work on him. Grim Harvest once a turn. When he kills a creature that is neither a construct nor undead, with a spell of first level or higher, he regains hit points equal to twice the spell's level, or 3 times if it's a necromancy spell. He has Chaos Phage, which he can use to gain some hit points, advantage on saving throws, and then he obviously has a ton of spellcasting options as well. Now, I also wanted to show off this wonderful piece of text on the side here, which is clearly an author's note that made it in. Are you able to double the length of this Volo text? It seems too little to fill the space nicely. ... Sorry about that. So yeah, apparently they just left that in. They obviously were supposed to remove that, but they left in some like notes to the author or the editor. Moving on from the henchmen, we have monsters. Now what's interesting here is these are a bunch of monsters, I feel like a lot of these from previous editions that we had not seen in the past. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this guy, but I remember this from early 3.5 monster manuals. We've got a Bebelith, this kind of weird eyeball spider, Demodand, a couple different options, a Dread Doppelganger, which looks absolutely terrifying, a Gibberling, which is smaller, but still could be dangerous. We have a Hamadryad, I guess. We have a Siren, like the actual Siren creature, the one that calls people to their death. I'm going to do the Faerun because this is one that we actually encountered in our Rod of Seven Parts campaign. And we were originally described to us as evil windsocks because that's what some of the early 2E art looked like. This is obviously significantly more terrifying. They're an aberration creature. You can see they have resistances and some immunities. But they can locate anyone that have magical sight, basically, and know which creatures are spellcasters. They can concentrate on 2 different spells at a time. If concentration is broken, they end on both spells. They are immune to polymorph and anything that would change their shape. They have magic resistance. They have 8th level spellcasting with a whole bunch of different options. They can make 4 attacks with their claws and bites or a stinger. Alternatively, it attacks with 2 claws and casts 1 spell. So we have a claw attack that does 2d6 plus 5, a bite that does 2d8 plus 4, a stinger attack, but also has this funky xenomorphic style ability. So if it hits you, if the target fails a DC 18 con save, they'll be paralyzed for 1 minute. The Faerun's poison forces the paralyzed target to float 5 feet above the ground. The target may repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns. It can also use an action to do a stinger attack against a paralyzed target. If it hits, an egg is implanted in the target. The egg can only be removed by a spell that cures disease, such as Lesser Restoration. If the egg is not removed within 90 days, the larva emerges and the host is killed. A Faerun has a single egg, so may only use this ability once. You have some obviously boosted skeleton lord, the sword spider, another huge favorite of mine with the big sort of 4 legs that do in this instance 2d6 plus 3 slashing damage, essentially a great sword, basically just in a arm, which is a nice challenge rating 3. It's also a beast, which means it can be used by druids. Same thing with the deep spider up here, the Tazloy. The Wolfware, which I had only heard of in the past, which it was nice that they gave us a Wolfware and a Wolfware Alpha. It is basically, its natural form is a wolf, and it can transform into a humanoid or a bipedal, like, hybrid werewolf. It's basically the inverse. Rather than a person who turns into the other two, this is a wolf that goes the other way. And then that is the end of this. So what do I think about this? One, I think it's definitely awesome. I think you should pick it up. I think if anything, it's a very useful tool for homebrewers and world builders to look at what WotC is doing. But it gets me in a weird spot because they just, like I said, they just made this big deal about how they were changing all future printings to have these updated stat blocks where they weren't going to have spell slots listed out and make things nice and tight and give them magical sort of abilities to overcome the fact that their spell slots would be lessened. These all have spell slots just like all of the older material. They also, like I said, they had that artist note in there, which I thought was kind of funny, which people might just skip over. But it's 158 pages, has a lot of stuff. I like the expanded group patrons. Once again, there's no reason that you couldn't just steal that word for your homebrew campaign and just change the name of the thing from Emerald Enclave to whatever you have in your world. Also, the nice little expansion of some extra monsters, giving you the idea to even use a notable henchman, and then giving you henchman options, villains, and evil characters that could be an entire campaign defining thing to tear down one of these villains to stop them from doing what they're doing, which they can then employ the henchmen and the monsters that are found in here as well. I think this is really cool. I like this, but what do you guys feel about this? Do you enjoy seeing this Wizards of the Coast supplement coming out on the DM's Guild? Like I said, seemed like zero promotion around this at all. It just sort of stealth dropped out of nowhere. And, it's, as far as I can tell, it's official, right? It was produced by Wizards of the Coast. So as far as if you're looking like for an official Faerun stat block, that's the best you're going to find. It's produced by WotC. It has their stamp on it. So it's also nice to see that it is available in print on demand at 158 pages. It's nice to have that. And then you can obviously do soft cover or hard cover. Or again, just pick up the PDF if you so like. It already is a best copper seller at the time of me making this video. That might have changed. It has 0 reviews, a lot of discussions. Let's see. Yeah. So all in all, I think it's good. But I wonder, because we knew that Chris Perkins had talked about seeing, he had Hydro74 develop this art of Boo with like spheres or eyes behind him. And I immediately thought like, oh, is this supposed to be that? But that doesn't have that specific art. But it does seem like they're leaning heavy into Minsc and Boo doing whatever it is they're doing. This is very Forgotten Realms specific. I was wondering if we were going to see more multiversal stuff, since they seem to be pushing the multiverse lately. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I like this. I like having more content. And then obviously if you're releasing it in PDF, it means we can get it sooner. It means we don't have to wait for you to go through the whole printing process. But does this do a weird thing where it creates a sort of like digital versus physical, DM's Guild versus official published book? How do you guys feel about this? I want to know. Please sound off in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching. I have a ton of content planned for this. This was not on my list originally, but it came out of nowhere. So we're hoping to round out the Wild Beyond the Witchlight coverage of the NPCs and the monsters in the next day or so. I have a top 10 video that I was hoping to get out today, but this kind of took priority because it's news. So the top 10, as it stands for my patrons voting, is going to be about top 10 things I want in this 5.5 or 6C, whatever's coming in 2024. I've got a bunch of product reviews and stuff over here as well. I got a whole pile over here on my floor that I need to go through. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.